If you go to Sky Tower radar again from Fox 13, this is ground radar that we're getting from Fox 13 in Tampa that covers that Naples and Fort Myers area. And watch the eye circle, 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 and then you see a little bit of a breakup of that. It's 104 miles from there, the leading edge, up to Sarasota, as you can see. So a long way to go at about 12 miles an hour, though I personally think it's moving a little bit faster now, moving its way up the coast. And we can just hope that it doesn't have any more of that warm Gulf moisture to continue to strengthen itself. If it were to run out of fuel there, this storm that we've dealt with for so long and through so many people have endured so much punishment from this, that storm would begin to weaken. This is the satellite radar of the storm as it moved its way. This is a time lapse now that we're seeing as it moved its way over the Keys there and now making its way up toward southwest Florida, overland now at Marco Island. And the last little blip there, the northern reaches, the upper reaches of that eye wall making landfall now with Naples. And in a short time, look at these live pictures at WSVN coming to us out of Naples. And you can see the winds just whipping the trees around and quite a scene there. There's a reporter there live. Let's listen.
So that's the kind of area we are in. We are in a parking garage right there off of 5th. And then on the other side of this parking garage, you're seeing just sort of a residential area, just homes like the one that you see behind me. As I mentioned, it's sort of a duplex. It's got a lot of, it's boarded up. There are trees out front.
SVN having their coverage. Let's get over to Steve Harrigan, who's live there for us as well. Steve, it looks like it's happening now.
It is happening, Shepard. It's coming in sideways, and most alarmingly, the water is beginning to rise on the street and get a pretty good current as that outer eye wall gets closer and closer to Naples. Probably the next hour could be the most intense damage that we've seen here. A city of 20,000 people, and at least 20,000 people in this area are in shelters. It was a real headache for a lot of them to get there. Some of those families waiting 4 or 5 hours to get in stadiums, as we're beginning to see small objects fly through the air. There's some palm branches, and now the wind. This is the strongest we felt it. I'm gonna have to go to the goggles here. There's really a double hit coming at Naples right now, both from this wind, which could be in excess of 115 miles an hour, and from a storm surge. That storm surge could reach 10 to 15 feet. We've seen really some startling scenes of water being sucked out of rivers out into the Gulf, and that water, as we speak, is starting to come in. The concern and the danger and the warnings are pouring in. Warnings about flash flooding, warnings about a storm surge that could be abrupt. You hear it in real calm tones from the National Weather Service. Life-threatening winds, life-threatening storm surge. The next hour, it's coming to Naples, Shepard.
Steve, you've been in a lot of these. Rank it.
It's not as bad as Corpus in Harvey, and I've never seen anything as bad as Gulfport in Katrina. In Gulfport, at 110, you could lean over and you couldn't fall down. I've got a lot of skepticism about these and about all the hype, so we'll see in the next hour if this one lives up to it or not. People have run all over Florida to get away from it. There's been a lot of inaccurate predictions made where it's going to land. It's caused a lot of heartache. But right now, we are seeing some physical destruction. We're seeing small pieces of roof fly off buildings. We're seeing larger branches fly off. And emergency rescuers are not going to help you. They have had to evacuate themselves. But we'll see how this gets in the next half hour. Whoa! Can't see a thing out of these goggles, Shepard, but gotta do it.
We believe, Steve, that for the next 15, 20 minutes, this is sort of your reality. And then at some point, that eye's going to hit you, and you're going to be in calm.
The eye I saw once in Everglades City a few years ago. I don't want to encourage anyone to go out there or to do anything foolish, but it is just miraculous when you walk out and see that blue sky. But I don't want to encourage anybody to do that. You know, this is a deadly storm, and it's a dangerous storm. It's killed a lot of people in the Caribbean on the way up here. And you've got to think that a storm surge of 15 feet could kill some Floridians. You know, 20 million people in this state, and 17 million of them have been under hurricane warning or watch, and they've really been on the run. People are getting criticized for what they've done, but a lot of people have tried to do things right. They thought it was coming to Miami. They went to Naples or Tampa. Now they're getting whacked in Naples or Tampa. You know, a senior citizen house here in Naples got on a school bus and went 10 hours north to Tallahassee, and they slept in chairs when they got there. So people around this state have tried to get out of the way. Officials have helped, but there is a lot of suffering. And you know, when this drama is over with the wind and the surge, we're looking at weeks of no power for people, weeks in the heat and with destroyed furniture. I'm just coming out of Houston, where the frames of the houses were intact, but everything inside was ruined. So you have people pulling out their entire life's work, their life savings. Out in front of their houses is a pile of junk. I'm hoping that doesn't happen here. I'm hoping this one moves on quickly and doesn't kill anybody, Shepard.
Man, I hope so too, Steve. I was mentioning earlier 185 miles an hour winds for 37 hours. That is the strongest and longest lasting storm in the history of the planet. There has, to be more specific, there has never been a storm to maintain 185 miles an hour maximum sustained winds for 35 hours in the history of meteorology on this planet. So no, Steve Gruber didn't exaggerate much. That's a fact. And we're very thankful that this storm has gotten down to 120 miles an hour. I can't even imagine if that storm that hit Cuba had come to hit you.
Yeah, we saw what it did in the Caribbean, to places like Barbuda. We saw islands made uninhabitable. And, you know, let's not get ahead of ourselves with what it could do to Southwest Florida. By morning time, Sanibel Island, a popular vacation spot, could be underwater, and we could see chunks of the Naples area underwater as well. We talked to some three-generation Floridians here, and they said they could expect a different geography by morning. So whether it's a Category 4 or a 3 is one thing, but if you're going to get 15 feet of surge here, it's going to change the geography overnight, Shepard.
15 feet would change the geography. I want to show, oh, it went away. Every time I go to that weather wall, you can see in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, our viewers can, the eye is still partially over Marco Island. But, Steve, we believe the eye of the storm is going to reach you very quickly as we approach 4 o'clock on the East Coast, and the maximum sustained winds of Hurricane Irma are now hitting between Marco Island and Naples. And Steve Harrigan's in Naples. Yeah. Describe it.
There we go. Pardon my back, but no choice at this point. This wind is starting to swirl here behind me, and it's really gotten a lot darker too. And you know that cliche about hurricanes when people say they heard the sound of a train or a boom. We just heard a large boom in the distance as well too. So it's darker, and this has got to be the walleye. I think we're seeing over 100 right now as I'm just trying to keep my feet. And the other thing might be hard to notice is I've got, in the last 3 or 4 minutes, 6 or 7 inches of water here flowing like a small river. This is one of the highest parts in Naples, so we'd like to get around and show you much worse parts if we can, but I really don't think we can move and keep a signal up at this point. But you've got to figure the water is rising. That's what you don't see, and that's the real danger here, Shepard.
The water is rising, and the authorities tell us where you are, expect it to rise between 9 and 15 feet above ground level.
Yeah, these things are always so hard to visualize. I mean, to stand here and to think that you're going to be 3 feet underwater in the next few hours is hard to process, no matter how many storms you've been in.
I think you're very close to the eye wall now, Steve. I'm looking at the radar and knowing your exact location, and I think you're at the worst of it and probably will be for the next, I'm guessing now, 10 or 15 minutes, and then eye wall time, and then eye of the storm.
Yeah, well, that's, you know, if we can make it another 15, that's just a testament to Fox Engineering to be able to. They've gone through about 4 or 5 live views and a couple of BGANs to keep this shot up. So hats off to everybody here who got the equipment up to keep the shot up. If we can get through the next 15, I think we're going to be all right. But then the next day or two, we'll probably be showing you people's flooded houses, and hopefully not people who've been stuck in their cars or in those houses, Shepard.
Yeah, it is a unique opportunity to be able to do this. When it came ashore this morning around 9 o'clock in the Keys, we certainly know live coverage out of that key. But now the outer bands of this storm, watch the last movement here, just getting to Naples. So Steve is in the thick of it and will be now for, I don't know, foreseeable future.
Yep. Still not Gulfport, Shepard.
No, I understood when Katrina came ashore and wiped out the southern part of the state of Mississippi. That was another thing indeed. This storm 2 days ago was worse than that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they tell us.
You know, yep. Yeah, I'm just sorry for old people. I'm sorry for people on oxygen. I'm sorry for people out here who are scared. You know, we've been through them. We're not scared. I just consider it a technical challenge to try and stay up and to stand here. But I know people are hurting, and I know they're scared. And I'll tell you what, we're standing right here, and we're going to tell you what's happening throughout this as this water now gets to about 6 or 7 inches. And I can't even turn this way because it is pure gray. All the light is gone behind me, and the water is just coming sideways down this street, Shepard.
We now have a wider shot, and we can see the trees. That looks unbearable, and I'm sure there are people sitting in their living rooms going, get him the hell inside.
Yeah, yep.
We've learned not to tell Steve what to do.
Yeah. Well, whoa. Well, the trees are not snapping. I've seen branches, but not full trees. Category 4, you expect trees to be uprooted. You expect roofs to fly off, and you expect side walls to fly off. That's not happening here. We're seeing strong wind and branches snap, but we're not seeing disintegration of buildings.
Yeah, Category 3, maximum 120 miles an hour. It may have gone down just a little bit from that, but we don't have that from the National Hurricane Center. You'd be the better judge, I think, than the equipment right now, Steve.
I think gusts of just over 100. But, you know, thank God I'm not seeing trees uprooted, because we would take shelter then. At least not where I am. I mean, I can't speak for the entire area. I'm just in this little corner here.
We do have an update as of just about 25 minutes ago from the Hurricane Center. Maximum sustained winds down to 115 miles an hour. The minimum pressure is up to 940 miles an hour, which means the thing is weakening as predicted, but not quickly enough.
This is just a stream of water now. This is more rain than we've seen so far today. It's coming in sideways, and it's just, there's no space in between the drops. And it's a stream down this road now. This road was dry an hour ago, and now it's a stream. And I've got to figure in the coastal areas, it's going to be much worse.
I would guess that's right. 115 miles an hour maximum sustained winds. That's down from 120 miles an hour in the last hour. And the update from the National Hurricane Center. Steve, just talk us through it as you can.
All right. We've seen worsening of conditions over the last hour or so. The part that you're really concerned about in any of these storms, wow. This is just circling now in front of me. The wind is beginning to swirl around. The worst part of any hurricane is the front right quadrant in the U.S., and we think that's what's been hitting the city of Naples now, a city of about 20,000 people. This storm has fooled a lot of people where it was going to hit. People in Miami were afraid. They went to Naples. I know people who moved their families to Naples. I almost moved mine here, but fortunately made a different decision. So people have tried to dodge this, and people left Naples and went north. To get out of this storm was such a headache, because basically you had to leave the state of Florida, and after a while you couldn't do that by plane. You can only do that by car, and there were gasoline shortages and traffic jams. At one point, you know, the Florida Turnpike and 95 North were about 5 miles an hour. So I really understood people like my neighbor who said, what am I going to do? Am I going to get in the car, and who knows if I'll get gas? Who knows if I'll get a hotel room? So you make life-threatening decisions whatever you do. I'm really tired of hearing people scold Floridians for not leaving. I mean, leaving was no bargain. It was no picnic to get out of this state. And I gotta tell you, oh, Jesus. So 15 minutes, then the eye's going to come out. That's probably going to last about 20 minutes, and then the backside of the storm. And then we'll see if what they're saying is true. Is there going to be a 15-foot storm surge? Is it going to come up abruptly and suddenly? That's what they've warned us. That's why everyone's phone is blinking. If that does happen, the first story of most buildings, the first floor of this hotel that we're in, and a lot of single-story dwellings could be underwater. We could see people on their roofs at night if that does happen. But with all these storms, you have to wait and see if it actually does happen, Shepard.
I think it will. Janice Dean is with us watching. Janice, this is the front edge, the leading eye wall, we presume.
That's exactly right. If you look at the radar, you have the strongest winds right now over Steve Harrigan, and we're saying 115 mile-per-hour sustained winds right now from the National Hurricane Center. That's their latest advisory. And then, as Steve mentioned, I think around 4:50 p.m. Eastern Time is when he will experience that crazy calm when the eye of the storm actually comes over Steve.
How's it going, Steve?
It's fine, Shepard. I know that you'd like to be here right now.
You always want to be where the storm is, but, you know, you do what you do.
Hey, you're doing a great job there.
It's very dry here, and we have catering, Steve. You know, watching you is unpleasant.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
You should.
But this is, you know, it can buckle you a little bit, but it can't knock you off your feet yet. Its water's about 6 or 7 inches, and it's beginning to pool. It's dark, and there's not a soul out. We've seen a few people walking around earlier in the day. Now no one's out, and in the distance, people are just sort of like shadows or figures because the visibility is down to about 0. You can understand why a first responder would be putting his life at risk were he or she to venture out in these kind of conditions. You have a power line dangling over there. Power lines are going to be coming down. You have trees snapping. You have debris in the road. And you have wind that could, in gusts, certainly move your vehicle off the road as well. So I know that first responders in the Naples area are itching to get out and save people. And I think, you know, rules might be bent or broken in the next couple of hours for them to do so. But it would be suicidal to be driving around in this right now, Shepard.
September 10th is a lot of things. September 10th is the absolute peak of hurricane season. It is the most hurricane-y day of the entire hurricane year, September the 10th. And September 10th is also, should you tell them or should I?
It's not about us, right, Shepard?
It is this time. It's Steve Harrigan's birthday. And what are you going to do on your birthday? Go to a ball game, maybe hang out with the family, or do you want to be on the leading edge of the eye of Hurricane Irma, standing in the water in Naples, Florida, and talking to Moron Shepard back in New York? Steve, thank you for choosing the latter.
No way, man. Thanks, Shepard. Let's just hope everyone gets through this okay. You know, as Senator Rubio said this morning, you don't want to be the guy that a tree falls on, and we certainly don't want to be that guy here, Shepard.
No, you never do. Never the hero. You can't be the victim. Our teams, we've got more than 100 people down there. I don't know the exact number, but when I saw that storm at 185, licking up the coast of Cuba and about to head north, it just sent shivers up your spine, worrying about all your friends and colleagues and all our friends down in Miami. So far, well, it's not as bad as it could have been, but man, you're going to get a pounding, Steve.
Yeah, you can go on and talk to other people if you want. Just keep the shot on me to see if I can hold my feet. I've pretty much said everything I can say about this. Now it's just the question of, will it knock you over or not?
Oh, my God. The voyeurs that we are, we'll stand and watch that, of course. Steve Harrigan, the birthday boy there in Naples. So if you're wondering if you're from the Naples area, the Marco Island area, Estero, Immokalee, anywhere down there, we have one little spot. What corner? Do you know exactly where you are, Steve?
Yeah, we're right on 5th Avenue, the Inn at 5th. And props to the Inn at 5th for having an amazing, safe hotel and for taking us in and for taking in first responders. This is the whole hotel of choice for your Category 5 hurricane.
Steve Harrigan by the Inn at 5th, another prop for the Inn at 5th, right there on 5th Avenue in very near downtown Naples. So that's the heart of the city, and what a beautiful place it is on a normal day. Not so much today. All this is headed north toward Fort Myers, and I think the eye of the storm has just about left Marco Island. Jim Castos is riding out the storm on Marco Island. Did you get the eye there, Jim?
It's still calm.
Still calm. Describe it for us.
It looks like it's about to get a lot worse, because that's what they say, right? How you doing, Shep? Big fan.
Thank you. Always during the eye of the storm, it's calm, but I wonder if you could, like, you went through a lot as it was coming, right? Could you take us through the process?
Yeah, it was a regular. The storm just progressively was getting worse and worse. The palm trees, moving more and more. Then about 45 minutes ago, it got really bad. That's probably where we hit our max winds. They were, from what I heard, 120 miles an hour or so, maybe higher. The palm fronds, are just basically covering the streets. I'm looking at some of my neighbors' houses. Some of their roofing tiles have been knocked off. But fortunately, this is a pretty good neighborhood that was built after Andrew, so everything is, impact windows and, up to hurricane standards. So we're pretty fortunate. The worst that we've had happen at the house is the screens in the lanai, have been ripping in, and some of the lanai broke, and there's a dent in one of the cars. But other than that, it's turned out better than better than it could have been. But then again, I hear the bad part is still coming, so I might eat those words in a few minutes.
Well, what's it like to be there after all that you've just been through, and then suddenly it's nothing?
Well, I went through the last hurricane in 2005, and I was in Miami in a high-rise where the building was swaying and the windows looked like they were to cave in. That was terrifying. This hasn't been as bad. Plus, the way the wind is coming, our house, it's coming from the part of the street where it's getting blocked by the other houses. So it's not as bad as if we were getting the full impact right into the side of it. You know what I mean? But it's weird how calm it is right now. It's just a slight drizzle. It's very hot, very humid. But, we know it's coming. So it's going to start getting nasty probably in a few minutes, I would guess.
I would think so. Usually the backside of the storm, after the eye crosses over, the winds shift to the opposite direction. And whatever was blowing down in one way usually blows down the other.
Yeah, we're on an inlet here. A canal, and I was just out there, and the water's still about 5 feet below the top of the seawall. But from what I hear, the big storm surge comes in the back end. So that's, I guess, the part to be scared about. But I think we're about 12 or 15 feet above it. So hopefully we'll be okay.
Well, I certainly hope so.
Yeah, this is a doozy. It's quite a bad storm. I've been having friends from Miami, where I used to live, send me videos. I sent some to your producer, and Miami's underwater. It almost looks worse. It looks worse there than it does here, and we're getting more of the brunt of it.
Jim Castos, who's live on Marco Island, has been riding out the storm. The eye of the storm now, the backside of the storm is coming. We'll see how that goes. Jim, we'll check back in with you. We thank you. On the right-hand side of this picture, I believe it's the picture on the right-hand side of the screen. Mark Heiner, is that right? The picture on the right-hand side of your screen is from Marco Island Police, and it's a picture of some debris in the road there. We're waiting for more details. If this is during the eye they went out and took this picture, Marco Island Police. Our senior meteorologist, Janice Dean, with us again. This eye ought to reach Naples pretty quick now.
Very quickly. The outer eye wall is now moving into the Naples area, and I think we still have Steve Harrigan's camera up. He should be experiencing the eye. He should be experiencing the eye in the immediate future, probably around 5 p.m. So now he's seeing the worst of the eye wall, which is 115 mile per hour sustained winds. Certainly 100 mile per hour is in the vicinity of what he's experiencing right now. And Certainly, he is going to feel that calm of the eye that moves through the region, and I know he's felt it before, but it's this very calm period of time that lasts for about an hour, and then the backside comes in, and people who are experiencing that think that they can go outside and maybe, shift some furniture outside around and see if everything is okay, maybe take the dog for a walk, which they can do, but they got to come right back inside because the back end of that storm is going to move in. And as you mentioned, we had a second landfall, Marco Island, around 3:35 p.m. Eastern time. That's our second landfall, and we are expecting another one to come later on this evening, overnight tonight, Shepard, somewhere along the coast, north of the Tampa area, perhaps around the panhandle of Florida. And then we're going to watch this storm continue to move northward and bring the threat for not only the storm surge along the west coast, but the tornado threat. We have a lot of tornado-warned storms right now across the east coast of Florida, around Fort Lauderdale, and those will be ongoing. They're weak tornadoes, but they can cause structural damage, and obviously when you have a lot of rain and wind, you're not going to hear those warnings, so that's the concerning part of it. But we are going to get another update, a full update at 5 p.m. Eastern time with the coordinates and whether or not the storm will continue its weakening trend. Certainly that seems to be the case, which is good news, but this is a storm surge story with all these vulnerable coastlines, so that's going to be an ongoing threat, especially as we get into the Tampa Bay area later on this evening.
No doubt. Look at WSVN interviewing someone on the streets in Naples. Listen to this.
Ready to respond to challenge.
Here we go. We're going to let you get inside. We're going to do the same. All right. Well, stay safe. We'll be talking to you soon. So you can see that those are the folks that we're actually seeing out here. Folks who are mostly
4:10 p.m., so like 6 minutes ago, sustained winds at 87 miles an hour in Naples, but a gust of 131 miles an hour at the Naples Municipal Airport at 4:10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So just 6 minutes ago, 131 miles an hour. That's one heck of a gust. And some of the things that we're probably seeing with Phil Keating now. I was told that WFXT, I believe, we wanted to go to, and hopefully full screen because these double boxes are about to make my head explode. You're sitting at home, you're watching television. It's like, how many televisions are you going to put in my television? Good grief. This is live of WFXT, is that right? Are they talking? WFTX. We've moved up the coast now. Let's listen.
The visibility is much better. The winds have eased up. You don't see that horizontal rain and such. So what would be happening in this moment? Are these just these little pockets?
Well, like I said, we were talking about those. I was talking about those mesovortices, and I know this sounds like a fancy word.
Sounds like a dinosaur.
It definitely sounds like a fancy word. Yeah.
Well, what it is, basically, just think of it like this. Think of like a ring or a circle. And then you draw little mini circles around the edge of the inside. So what happens in these strong hurricanes is that you'll get these little mini spin-ups on the inside. Tornadoes will do the same thing. You'll get what we call a multiple vortex tornado. You'll have these what's called suction vortices, of these very small mini tornadoes that spin around the main parent tornado. In the eye, sometimes of these strong hurricanes, you can get these little mini vortices that will spin around the eye, and you can get even stronger winds as those pass by. It's not out of the question that we could be looking at that situation there where you get these little mini vortices, these little spins that spin around the entire eye and creating even stronger winds from the ambient winds, I guess, within the eye wall. So it's a very frightening experience because they come up on you really quickly. They produce this huge burst of really strong winds.
Live coverage with what looks like a picture in the parking lot. Fort Myers, of course, north of Naples. The storm bearing down on Naples now. We think the eye is going to cross over there soon, and we'll get back to our Steve Harrigan, who's on scene. First, though, let's get to Carlos Valvasori, who's riding out the storm near Naples. Carlos, where are you and how are you?
Good, thanks, Jeff. It's Carlo. My folks were Italian.
Oh, my bad. Carlo, how are you and where are you?
We're really good. We're about 5 miles east of Marco Island right now.
And how are things?
The winds are really starting to gust up now. We're getting, we lost power about 30 minutes ago. It's been in and out, but we lost it permanently about 30 minutes ago. The water's rising out in the street, some downed trees. So we're just sitting tight. We're on the main floor of a 2-story building, but we're ready to move upstairs if we have to.
Well, I hope you don't have to. Thanks and very good luck. I want to get to Phil Keating, who's out in the midst of it. I believe Phil's in Miami on the 79th Street Causeway. How's it there now? Good grief. All these hours later, it's still like that.
Goodness gracious. I know we just had about 10 minutes of no rain, and I got optimistic, and now I'm being pelted like with rocks. Check out that car, that black car. That's the same one we were showing you several times earlier this afternoon that had stalled out in the middle of the flooded street. Well, now you can see the waters in the street are finally starting to go back down. Another big change here in Miami-Dade County is the wind and rain was coming straight at my face in this direction, northeast to southwest. It's now coming from the southeast, heading to the northwest. So we're starting to get that rotation of wind and rain as the center of the storm now is getting further north in the latitude of Miami. So we're getting the opposite wind effect, or wraparound effect. But it's still very hellacious to be outside when it's raining and windy and it's coming in at 20, 30, 40 miles an hour. Doesn't feel good whatsoever. Curfew in effect tonight, 7 to 7, because so many roads are impassable and so many traffic signals are just not working.
The storm's hitting Naples in earnest right now. WSVN interviewing people right alongside the building there, and what a howling windstorm.
How much are you worried about storm surge? Even in the last few minutes, I've seen more water come through here than we saw in hours before.
It's very important to follow the directive of the National Weather Service, the Hurricane Center. They will let you know what is expected in the next coming hours. Storm surge here, I have heard it may be changed at this point. Could be up to 1 to 2 feet around this area. If you're along the shoreline, definitely more than that. But once again, follow the directive of the National Weather Service and listen to their reports, and they will give you the best information available.
All right. Thank you so much, Grant. Appreciate it. Thank you. You stay safe. So we're lucky we've got experts in Miami. We've got experts here. We're surrounded by experts, so we're good. We're getting good information.
Plenty of experts, lots of wind, lots of rain. Our thanks to WSVN's team there, riding it out in Naples and watching this storm come ashore. From the looks of things, the Doppler radar, the leading edge, the worst of the rain, these pictures that you're seeing now, the worst of it coming to Naples. And shortly, they should be in the eye of this storm, as the storm now has maximum sustained winds of 115 miles an hour. It's a Category 3 storm, so a major storm still. Partly over land, the eye is, and northbound through Collier County, about to make it into and then through Naples and headed to Fort Myers, Florida, which is on the southwest Florida coast. 115 mile an hour maximum sustained winds. Forward progress 12 miles an hour at last report from the National Hurricane Center. Central pressure now 940 millibars. So the central pressure is going up on the scale, which is really good news. That means the storm is weakening and continuing to move in a north direction. Again, more live pictures coming out of Naples, and you can see the sheets of rain just gliding across all of those palm trees. It's great to see. We don't see a lot of structures down. Some of the worst of the winds are coming now and should for the next, I believe, 10 or 15 minutes. But we could be off by 5 or 10. And then you saw them wipe the screen there. And then eventually they'll be in the eye of the storm. And I think we'll be able to get a better idea of exactly how damaged things are in and around. It is certainly a testament to our engineers that we can still get out of there. Live signals are very difficult. We like to talk about rain fade in a non-digital world. Rain fade will set you on your rear, but somehow they're using all kinds of sophisticated equipment and the internet have been able to get these pictures out of there. In the height of the storm, with 115 mile an hour winds and 131 mile an hour gusts nearby, at the Naples Regional Airport. So a lot to deal with, and certainly amazing pictures coming out of there. Survival is the word of the day, and we're getting pictures out of Cuba now, and they are really breathtaking. Lillian has them here at Bat 6.
Yes, these are pictures from today in Havana. You can see some today.
Oh, wow.
People floating down the streets. Looks like a father with his son. Just people kind of going about their lives, but in a disaster zone. This waves coming in, what looks like streets.
You can see people on the left-hand side of the picture there, and that clearly was a street. And I guess will be again.
Up to their knees, it looks like, and powerful waves still coming in
along the seawall, the Malecon. Wow, that's Havana today. We wonder and have been wondering if there will be a humanitarian crisis on the northern coast of Cuba. I'm not sure we know for sure yet, especially the coastal communities down along the beach, Varadero, Matanzas, other places where we don't really have the best information. These pictures, again, live to us from Naples, and just listen to this. We've been watching. If you look real closely, you can see a flag in there, or what's left of one. This has been one of our live looks for much of the day, and the flag hasn't held up too well. I'm guessing somebody will get out there and replace that thing as soon as the weather allows. But the sights and sounds of a powerful Category 3 storm coming ashore and just tearing through the community. Listen to this. "115-mile-an-hour maximum sustained winds with gusts to 131 miles an hour at the Naples airport, and other gusts, as you see at the bottom of your screen, up to 160 miles an hour. I know because I see it at the bottom of the screen. And sustained winds right here in Naples were at 87, and the eye wall getting closer and closer. And there's the wider view. These pictures from APTN, Associated Press Television News, and just incredible to look out over the landscape there. You wonder what it was like at Cudjoe Key this morning. That tiny little key, just very near. Once you get to Cudjoe, you're almost to Key West. You know, you could almost taste Mallory Square by then and see the cat lady walking by and waiting for that perfect sunset at Mallory Square. I wonder, Key West on the drier side of the storm, on the west side of the storm when it went by. It'll be interesting to see what everything looks like there. I can tell you one thing, those conchs they'll fix it up and get right back after it. They always have. Can't imagine that changing. Now they're dealing with it in Naples, and the storm is headed north toward the Fort Myers area. Phil Farrow, WSVN's meteorologist, talking about the details of this right now. Let's listen.
Florida Keys as well.
Incredible. All right. Thank you so much, Phil Farrow. And as soon as we can hook up back with Nicole Ensalada, a very dedicated reporter, we'll do that. By the way,
the moment I go to him, he's finished. But here are the live pictures coming to us there. Lynn Martinez was the anchor there at WSVN, and when they get back to Phil, we'll take a look in there. We've got some very interesting imagery coming in that's showing the making of a second landfall. Look from WTVT, the meteorologist explaining what it was like just as this storm came over land there in Marco Island.
Imagery. The past couple of months, we've been using it a lot. Let's shift gears a bit and go back to my weather graphics if we can. We'll take a look outside. 77 degrees.
Clearwater Beach, but look and see what it looks like in Naples. Those same pictures, and we've been watching these from Naples for the last hour or so. They're able to give the technology to keep giving us these shots, and we're expecting at some point that the eye will pass over and we'll have a calm day and be able to assess a little bit about how this went. As the storm continues to head north, the eye of the storm is sort of straddling the land. So part of the eye wall is over the water, part of the eye wall is over the eye is over the land. So the storm is still able to have that fuel that it needs, the warm water, the Gulf of Mexico, still fueling that storm as it continues its move northward. If at some point it gets completely over it, look at the sky tower. Oh, never mind. I'm looking at the sky tower radar for you, and I can see that almost all of the eye of the storm is over land, though some of it is still over water, and we'll be able to see how much the strength diminishes here in the next few minutes. Fully in Naples now, so is our Steve Harrigan. Steve, how you doing?
Shepard, we're doing fine here. There's really been little let-up in the wind force right now. We're starting to see more and more debris fill the roads and also come off from buildings. There's one building down the road which is beginning to lose part of its roof. We've seen the tile just bat around down the street. We're seeing larger pieces, larger branches fall off, and as you can see, the roadway behind me is really beginning to be filled with debris. The two concerns here for people's safety are, one is that wind, and two is a storm surge which could reach 10 to 15 feet here right after the eye passes. Over the last hour or so, we've seen a steady rise in the water here on the streets, really streaming towards this way. So really twin concerns. Strengthening wind now, which has been strong for about the past hour, and a storm surge which could follow that eye in Naples. A city of about 20,000 people. Most of those people have left or evacuated. A few stubborn or experienced people deciding to stay here. But right now, first responders are not answering the call under these conditions, and certainly understandable. Why not? Very dangerous to be out on the road moving around under these conditions. But certainly they will be out, perhaps performing water rescues throughout the night if we do get such a storm surge of 10 to 15 feet, Shepard.
Steve, did you say it's calmed down just a little bit? Because it looks like the eye's very close to you.
It comes and goes, and I think in the last 2 or 3 minutes it has calmed down, and now we're seeing the wind abate right now. So what we could be seeing here, and I'm just speculating, I don't know, it could certainly kick up again in a minute, but we could be seeing the eye of the storm approach Naples. I don't know that for certain, but as we see some debris fall there, the wind has abated and the wind has abated as well. But I'm not seeing that clear sky that we've seen in the past when an eye of the storm goes over, Shepard.
Well, I'm watching it on the radar. The eye is a little shaky, a little wobbly. A straight-up look in just a minute might show something, because the eye of the storm, the eye of Hurricane Irma, is passing over Naples and North Naples right now.
It's just one more way that these storms can be deceptive, how dramatically they can change from 1 minute to the next. You can see gusts of up to 100 miles an hour, parts of buildings collapse, large branches blown off, and then a few minutes later we're seeing a lightening of the sky here. But I can't say with any certainty whether this is the eye or not, Shepard.
I can't either. I can just tell you from looking at the radar that Naples itself will be under the eye very soon, and I know that it is a somewhat wobbly eye. They often become a little more disorganized once they get over the land. When you look around in your general vicinity there on 5th, Steve, how does it look?
It looks like a very powerful windstorm in this part of the city, with a lot of debris on the roads, a lot of down branches. I'm not seeing uprooted trees. I'm not seeing wanton, complete destruction, the kind that we saw in Katrina, where entire buildings and vehicles were picked up and thrown. That might be because I'm in a a very built-up part of the city, some very sturdy buildings around me, so I can't give the full picture. But where I am, it's branches and bits of rooftops, but not wholesale destruction of buildings, not street signs snapping, but just debris and rising water. Now, that rising water could prove to be deadly in the hours to come, Shepard.
Well, we can hope not, but certainly there's much more storm to come once it passes by there in Naples. They'll certainly get the backside of the storm. Our Griff Jenkins is in Naples as well, on just up the beach, I believe, just a little bit. Griff, how are you guys holding up?
Shep, it's really coming hard now. I know I'm only a few miles away from my colleague Steve there, but this tree right here just snapping off. You can see the water behind us. This is the strongest winds we've felt yet, and it's complicated by this pond here that the water's rising at least a foot or more upon us as they put out the flash flood warnings. But the winds are the strongest sustained that I've felt since we've been out here today, and certainly debris now flying not off of buildings, but flying at 10, 12 feet in the air level. Just try, if you can, look at some of the things falling on us. Just a absolute fierce part of this storm laying in on us now 3 miles east of the ocean off of Vanderbilt Beach Drive, and we are just getting whipped right now with it. The other problem, of course, this wind that is whipping us is somewhere along the coastline 3 miles from me, bringing that surge and that water into where we did some of those earlier shots. This beach road, we'll see how far. It won't be 3 miles, but it'll certainly be blocks like it was in Wilma in 2005. When you talk to the locals, the first thing they tell you is, oh, I hope it doesn't flood like it did on Gulf Shore Drive in 2005. Well, my guess is, and I'm not going there anytime soon, my guess is when we take a look, when this blows over, it's going to be equally that bad. And it's also worth pointing out that back literally on this day in 1960, Hurricane Donna whipped this area and devastated, according to the locals here, devastated Naples, and they're taking a beating right now, Shep.
Griff Jenkins in Naples for us. Let's get down to Marco Island. Remember, the storm's eye passed over Marco Island a short time ago. Wayne Pluhoff is there. He rode out the storm where the hurricane made its second landfall of the day. How are things there?
Right now, there's a lot of damage, a lot of down trees. The hurricane boat center next to me has quite a bit of warning damage and stuff to this building. We have a couple of rooftops ripped off, which are what they call peaky huts and stuff taken away. Some of our neighbors on the third and fourth floor, the slider doors were blown out and flow over in the far side of the complex here. Some more slider doors were also blown out to the wind. Just before coming on air with you, I was just told that there are several boats in the marina area badly damaged. I won't know more until I get down there after the storm to take some solar shots and pass them along on my Facebook page. Also, everybody on my floor is okay. The fourth floor okay, except for those with the sliding door problems that blew out.
Wayne Pluhoff, who's speaking into a phone with a lot of, speaking into a phone with a lot of water there, so it's very hard to understand, and it's understandable that would be the case, but it sounds like mostly things are good. He said a couple of roofs are off. Wayne, everybody's safe around you? No problems with health, right?
Yeah, no, there's plenty of people around for help if needed.
What was that?
There are plenty of people around for help if needed.
Okay, that's great. Wayne Pluhoff, who's ridden out the storm on Marco Island, where the hurricane made its second landfall just a short time ago. We've been watching the storm surge, and Sky Tower radar from TVT in Tampa shows you the concerns about storm surge. Lots of that is the Florida Everglades, but just above that second, the higher of the two arrows is Marco Island and Naples, and then you see Fort Myers up north of that, and as it begins to move in that direction, and there's Naples on the map. This Naples is where the storm is right now, and the Doppler radar showed us just a short time ago that The eye is over parts of Naples now. And over in Brickell, remember in Miami Beach, in Miami, we were showing you just south of downtown Miami, how Brickell was flooded? Well, it still is. These live pictures coming to us from WSVN in South Florida. Listen.
Just pushing the water west. Yeah, you see right there in front of Colonnade Plaza, you can see that's what the storm surge does. It's like a river. And so we're like 3 blocks west of the bay, and so the water is just coming from the bay and it's being pushed down these streets, and you see Brickell is now underwater. What I've been taking a look at is these steps over here. The water earlier today was up to the top of these steps, and now it is we've got like 2 or 3 steps showing at the top. So I'm hoping that that's a good sign that things are receding out here. But it's been interesting because people should really stay inside. I mean, you don't want to be in this water. It's seawater. It's murky. You can't tell where the road and the curbs and the sidewalks begin and end, and there's no telling what's under the water. But a lot of people have been coming out, and there were actually Miami police out here a while ago urging them to stay inside. I actually saw, this was interesting, about a half an hour ago, I saw a big expedition roll through here, not realizing how deep it was, and they actually got stuck for a second, and the muffler was bubbling. And so I walked over as close as I could get, and I noticed inside the expedition, the people inside were wearing bike helmets. And apparently there are these amateur storm chasers who have come to town who are trying to get as close to the damage as they could. But it was such a strange sight because they were in like this rental white expedition and they had on these bike helmets inside. Needless to say, they didn't make it through the water. They got stuck for a second, and then they were finally able to turn around and get out of flooded Brickell Avenue.
There you go. That's the latest from Brickell in Miami. Let's take a live look down in Naples, where the wind gusts are still just howling. We just got a new report from the Naples airport, confirmed by the National Weather Service, 142-mile-an-hour gust. And go to the WTVT picture that's coming to us out of Tampa. This is the beach in Tampa, the bay. Just a second ago, they were, and there are the anchors, of course. My timing's impeccable. Just a second ago, they were showing Clearwater Beach. And on Clearwater Beach, the water is off the beach because the storm itself is pushing the winds out to sea, and largely there is no water, not at least up where there normally is, right along the seashore in Tampa Bay and Clearwater Beach. These are live pictures coming from Naples. This is Steve Harrigan's position. The winds have picked back up again after 142-mile-an-hour gust at the Naples airport. I'll say they've picked up. And we're just waiting for that eye to pass over there. We really think that parts of the eye are over parts of Naples now. If you look up there, you can see it seems to be brightening up just a little bit in that area. But this storm is still on the move. Officially from the National Hurricane Center, we're expecting yet another update from the National Hurricane Center at 5 o'clock Eastern time. So in about 17, 18 minutes from now, we'll get that update. And so far, we know 115-mile-an-hour maximum sustained winds. The direction is due north at 100 with 115-mile-an-hour maximum sustained winds, due north at 12 miles an hour. So Fort Myers, it'll be coming to you shortly, and then up into the Tampa-St. Pete area after the sun goes down this afternoon. You'll start feeling the effects of this storm shortly in Tampa-St. Pete, but not the full effects of it for another number of hours at least, because it's a long way up there. This just in from Florida Power and Light. More than 3 million homes and businesses are now without power in the state of Florida. 3 million. And in the main, according to the power authorities, based on people, not households, 1 in 5 people in the state of Florida right now has no power as the storm continues to churn north. Fox News Channel coverage continues right after this.